Cultural enrichment is a remarkable thing, is it not? Think about the level of criminality coming to this country. Think about the level of religious persecution, how it's on the rise. Think about homophobia on the rise. Think about the subjugation of women, all on the rise, because we are taking on the culture of backward third world nations. Well, now the political left want to have FGM surgery on the NHS. Unbelievably, 87,000 British women, that is to say, women living in the United Kingdom, have complained of medical problems resulting from female genital mutilation. I will later on in the video give you a very broad description of what that is, but I'm not going to be overly graphic, so don't worry about it. 87,000, by the way, up from 0 in the past, because this is a practice that is popular in dump countries, in third world countries, in crazed Islamic regimes, in countries where mutty magic is popular. But of course, we have brought the worst of the worst to Britain. We have brought the poorest. We have brought the least well educated. We have brought the most backward. We have brought the most religiously fervent to Britain. And now we are reaping the rewards of that. 87,000 women just from the complications have presented themselves. The number of women living in Britain with this problem now is likely to be enormous. And it's you who is now going to pick up the bill in order to sort it out. Hello everyone, this is Andre Walker. Thanks so much for watching this video. Please do subscribe, but also please do donate to Patriot Club, a Patriot Fund. We support right-wing people and patriotic people across the country. Okay, so female genital mutilation, which is the cutting of the vagina in multiple ways, normally with a razor blade and no anaesthetic. Popular in dump countries, as I say, in places like Africa and Asia. But of course now, the people from those backward third world communities are now flooding into Britain in unprecedented numbers. As I say, the figure is 87,000. Across Europe, hundreds of thousands of people have this complaint. And of course now, because the National Health Service is supposed to be universal for anyone who is who's got a British passport, these women are now asking for the remediation or the treatment or the surgery, reconstructive surgery, to be offered on the NHS. Now, I'm going to be completely honest with you. I have no problem with reconstructive surgery in certain circumstances. I don't believe that you should get plastic surgery on the NHS. But clearly, if you are a burns victim or you've been involved in a car accident and you've been facially disfigured in some way, then I absolutely do support it. I don't support it for the purposes of beauty. I support it for the purposes of practicality. Similarly, I don't believe there should be boob jobs on the NHS unless the reason is kind of essentially medical, things like someone who's had a mastectomy, or indeed there are some women who struggle with overly large breasts in order and that can give them back problems. But I don't think that we should be providing treatment for people who've been the victims of female genital mutilation, simply because 87,000 additional operations, and the number will increase because we are now, as a country, addicted to immigration from backward countries. And because we're addicted to immigration from backward countries, we're going to end up in a position where this number rises and rises and rises. Now, I'm going to give some sympathy to those people on the political left who want to have this treatment on the NHS. I do understand why you might want to have the corrective surgery on the NHS, but once again, the solution to this problem is to not bring people in from the third world. And we've seen this on so many occasions before, haven't we? The rise in mutty magic, the rise in human sacrifice. Oh, and by the way, when you say there have been no examples of human sacrifice, we know of at least one. I've also been told on my TV show, and this may or may not be true, do you know the women who accidentally set fire to themselves with their saris? Apparently many of those are in fact honour killings. And what happens is they're able to use the excuse that the sari set fire while they were cooking, because obviously quite often they're made of polyester, and then that destroys all the evidence of them having been either beaten to death or strangled or whatever it is that has actually happened to them. Unbelievable situation. And so I then go back to asking the same question I've asked on this channel before. When is foreign culture bad? So There is now a hierarchy of culture, isn't there? So in the view of the political left, British culture is truly awful. And then anything that comes in that is not British culture culturally enriches and makes it better. Well, I would say to you that there must be a hierarchy of culture. There must be some cultural practices which are denigrating. And if there are cultural practices which denigrate Britain, what are we doing to prevent ourselves from adopting those mechanisms? I was talking to a Supreme Court justice from Latvia who was talking about the European Convention on Human Rights and why Britain should stay in it. And what he said was this. He said, listen, when the Soviet Union fell, Latvia needed to create its own constitution, needed to create its own legal code, and more importantly, needed to create ethics for its judges, its lawyers, and indeed its politicians. And they said because Britain was in the European Convention on Human Rights, it made it very easy for Latvia to adopt those standards. Now, the European Convention on Human Rights is clearly significantly better than the old Soviet constitution that governed them in the past. And so what he said is, look, by creating this standard, you are raising up the standard of law in Latvia. I said, yes, but it's a seesaw, isn't it? So by improving Latvia, which is on my right here, you are declining the United Kingdom's legal practices. And yes, so the people who come from areas that have female genital mutilation, that have mutti magic, that have human sacrifice, when they come to Britain over a period of time, they become less savage because they've learnt from a superior culture. But they have also brought down that culture by maintaining some of their practices. And some of those practices are female genital mutilation. Now, we can delude ourselves into believing that none of these FGM operations, I say operations, none of these FGM attacks have taken place in Britain, but you are deluding yourself. We like to tell ourselves that it happens in Africa, in Asia, and when people come over to Britain, we then have to deal with the fallout from it. But in reality, there are closed African communities in Britain, as there are closed Asian communities in Britain. Many of the traditional practices that take place in these countries take place in Britain. What about the example that we've all been talking about Chinese spying? Look, the Chinese government openly operates within the Hong Kong Chinese and indeed the mainland Chinese community in Britain because these communities keep themselves to themselves. They operate not as completely part of China, but as much a part of China as a part of the United Kingdom. And so what do we do now? Well, what is the solution that all the lefties want to have? Very, very simple. They want to have us deal with these problems. They want us to bring all these problems from around. Send us your waifs, send us your strays, send us your poor, send us your badly educated, send us your backward, and we will put them on the social. We will fund them through the NHS. And then you can literally maintain your practice of FGM and we will deal with it, because that is the end of the story, is it not? That when we start bringing in remediation for FGM, we are on a stepping stone. We are on a process to where we start doing the procedure ourselves, because we'll say, well, given that this is their culture, we've got to allow them to follow it, and let's do it in the most safe and regulated way we can do it. And that is what will happen. I've got to be honest with you, I'm not a fan of any unnecessary medical procedure. I don't think that Jews and Muslims should continue with their practice of unnecessary circumcision, simply because I think every medical procedure carries a risk. And to undertake a medical procedure, which has inherently got a risk because everyone does, even though you don't need to do it, I think once again is a backward practice. But I'm not as worried about male circumcision as I am about female circumcision, but we continue to do both. We continue to do male on the NHS. I worry very gravely about the way this country is becoming a third world country, about the way this country is becoming poorer, becoming less educated, becoming less able to do what it wants to do. We are now starting to change our culture. Our culture now is about machete violence. Our culture now is about religious intolerance. Our culture now is about an abolition of the division between church and state. Our culture now is mutti magic and human sacrifice and all of those things. I will tell you, if you run round in a loincloth, you haven't got any culture, you're just a fool. Until next time, goodbye.